I'm Jackie from Curve Pilates. I'm a physiotherapist based in Sydney, and today's video is an introduction to Pilates to teach you how to activate your core muscles so you get the most from your classes. Before we get started, please remember to comment, like or subscribe if you enjoy this video. Pilates has a large focus on core muscles, and there's a few different layers to our core, so I'm going to run you through them. The first layer is our superficial layer, or our surface layer of muscles, and this is made up of our six-pack abs. These help us do our big crunching movements. Underneath that, we also have our oblique muscles, so there's the external and internal obliques, and they help us do our side-to-side movements. Underneath that is our deep core muscles. There's a muscle called our Transverse Abdominis, which is a thin sheet of abdominal muscle that wraps all the way around. We then have our diaphragm that sits on top and helps us to breathe, and we have our pelvic floor muscles on the bottom. They all work in a synergy or in a team with some muscles in our back as well that run all the way up and help stabilize through our back. What I mean when I say they work in a team is that if we get our transverse abdominis, or that thin sheet of muscle in our abdomen to work and contract, we'll also get a little bit of pelvic floor contraction and vice versa. Today I'm going to show you how to start to get these muscles contracting so you can focus on that deep core when you're doing your Pilates workout. Let's get started by having a lie down on our back. Now that we're down on our back, we're going to have our feet flat, knees bent, legs are hip width apart. We're going to find those bony points in our pelvis, and we're going to drop our fingers on the inside of them. You have to press quite firmly to be able to feel, so poking yourself a little bit. We're then going to start to think about how to turn on these deep core muscles. I'll run through a few different cues because everyone is different. The first one is thinking about drawing your belly button into your spine just gently. So imagining you're trying to do up the zip on a pair of jeans, just that little bit too tight. While we're doing this, what we're wanting to feel underneath our fingers is just a contraction, a very light contraction or a very light tightening under our fingers. We should not feel like our fingers are being pushed out by our abs up to the roof. So it's a very subtle movement. Have a go of trying to draw your belly button in and seeing if you feel that tightening happening. The other cue that we can use here, if you're not feeling anything working there, is instead of imagining drawing that belly button in, is imagining we're trying to tighten up a belt. So feeling that those two pelvis bones at the front are being drawn in together. If you're still struggling to find any contraction there, the other cue that you can use is your pelvic floor. As I said before, your pelvic floor and your core muscles have a team relationship. So if we get one activating, we should get a little bit of contraction in the other. To get your pelvic floor lifting and working, what you want to imagine is you're holding in a V. That's usually the easiest cue. So you're thinking about that draw in and lifting up and seeing if you can feel that tighten underneath your fingers there. If you're not feeling anything happening, don't worry, don't stress too much. It is a matter of practice as well. So it is a good one before you're doing Pilates classes, if you're new to it, to spend 5 or 10 minutes before your class just trying to get these muscles activating, thinking about drawing your belly button in or your bones of your pelvis pulling in, or doing some pelvic floor work. That's how we activate our deep core. We then talk a lot about a neutral spine in Pilates. I'm going to teach you now how to get into your neutral spine. To find our neutral spine, we're first going to go through some movements. So first thing, we're going to imagine that we've got two headlights beaming off our points, the bony points of our pelvis here. We're going to tuck our bottom under so that those headlights are now pointing up towards our head. Then we're going to arch our back, create a nice space between the lower back and the mat. Our headlights will be pointing down to our toes. We're going to rock between those two movements. If you're struggling to think of the headlights, you can also think of your pelvis as a bowl of water. We're going to flatten our back and tip water out the back of our pelvis, or we're going to arch our back, create that space and tip water out the front of our pelvis. We're going to keep doing those rocks. This is a nice one to loosen up the lower back as well. Now that we've got the hang of that, we're going to gradually make these rocks smaller and smaller until we find we're exactly in the midpoint of those two movements, and that will be our neutral spine position. Everyone is slightly different, so as I said, just let's make those rocks smaller and smaller. And you're going to stop when your headlights are directly up to the roof or your bowl is sitting directly flat. There's no water tipping either side. That is your neutral spine position. For most people, that means that there's a small gap between your back and the mat, about the size of a grape. We're going to hold that position here, and we're going to start with some core muscle work. To hold it there, we're going to combine everything together. So we've got our back in its neutral position, we've got our core muscles turning on just lightly. For me, I'm going to start to draw my belly button into my spine and keeping that nice little gap. Let's start with some Pilates exercises now. First one we're going to do is a bent knee fall out. I'm keeping this all nice and still through my trunk, and I'm just starting to open up through my hip, letting one leg drop out to the side, drawing it back to the center, dropping out on the other side. This is a scoop from the hip. We don't want any pelvis shifting, any movement through our trunk. This stays nice and still. We just scoop through the hip, back to the center, other side. While you're still getting the hang of whether your core muscles are turned on properly, it can be nice to leave your fingers on the inside of your pelvis and just seeing if you can feel that tightening maintained. Once you get the hang of it and you become a bit more of a pro, you can have your arms relaxed by your side. We're going to do one more on each side here. Beautiful. Our second exercise we're going to go into is a heel slide. So again, we're going to keep our back in its neutral position. There's that little gap behind our back in the mat. Our headlights are pointing up to the roof. We've got our belly button gently pulling in, we're thinking about bringing the bones of our pelvis in together. We're going to start to extend the heel of the right leg out along the mat. Keep the heel down the whole time, then draw it back in. We're going to go on the other side. Extend that leg nice and long, then draw it back in. The idea of this one, as I said, is to make sure our trunk is staying nice and still. We're not getting any back movement as our leg moves in and out. This is staying nice and strong. You can use your breathing to help. You can exhale as your leg goes long. Inhale as it comes back to the center. Exhale as you reach long. Inhale back to the center. Keep going with these. Third exercise we're going to go into is some femur ups. So again, we're keeping that nice neutral position. We're keeping our core muscles on. We're going to start to lift one leg into a 90-90 position. So thighs should be vertical, shin should be horizontal. We lower that leg, we swap sides. It's a nice gentle movement. Again, we're focusing on our control. Making sure the back of our pelvis is staying nice and heavy on that mat. No lateral shifting or no side shifting through our pelvis. You want to make sure you're keeping your neck and shoulders nice and relaxed as well. Let go of the tension up there. We're going to go one more on each side. Excellent, well done. We're going to go for one more exercise in this introduction series. This one time, instead of having our back in its neutral position, we're going to tuck our pelvis underneath so our back is nice and flat. So our headlights are pointing up towards our head, or we're tipping water out the back of our pelvis. We're then going to lift our legs into what we call tabletop. Both legs are up in the air, thighs are vertical, shins are horizontal. We are still thinking about that gentle draw of our belly button into our spine, or bringing those pelvis bones together at the front. We're then going to tap one leg down at a time to touch the ground, lift it back up. Exhale, tap the other leg, inhale, lift it back up. You should start to feel your abs working a little bit harder here. Make sure that back is glued down for this one. We've got one more. We're going to bring both legs gently back down one at a time and relaxing everything. Well done on completing this Pilates introduction. These are a great little set of exercises that you can use to start to build up your strength and your confidence in turning on the correct muscles when you're doing a Pilates class. This is also great to revisit if you haven't done Pilates for some time and would just like a bit of a refresher. I hope you enjoyed, and I look forward to seeing you all next time.